The all-new generation of the Nissan Navara or NP300 or maybe also Nissan Frontier, depending on your market. And all of the changes of this new generation will be today on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. We're going to talk about the exterior, the interior, and of course what has changed in technology in driving. And we're going to do it on-road and off-road with a lot of very interesting off-road exercises here. Let's go. Autogefühl in full HD, full screen and full length, starting right here at the new front grille. And what can we see here? There's a new unit forming from front grille and the headlights, one straight line here, and it's looking a little bit upward, smiling. So, it's friendlier, but still, more sorted out than the previous generation. Again, the Nissan Navara or Frontier will be available in two different versions. This one here is the double cab, and we have more space for the passengers. There's also the king cab available. That one has more loading room here. Total length of the car, 5 meters and 30. And if you have the double cab, you have then 20 centimeters less space on the loading area here. If you put it with the king cab, you have 20 centimeters more even in loading area. But you see, even as it is here right now, you have reasonable space. However, for your motocross bikes, that one would be maybe better than with the king cab. But I can show you how you can lengthen the loading area a little bit. This one here is one of the higher trim level versions called here N Connector in Germany, and therefore we also have some special equipment already on the outside. We have those footboards here, for example, and they're quite practical, of course, to get in and out of the car very easily. Price overview, taking German price as a reference, starts about 25,000 euros and goes up to 40,000 euros. This very car stands here right now with a stronger diesel, soon talk more about that. It's about 36,000 euros overall in this, not highest trim level, but one of the higher trim levels. Next to this earth bronze paint, which is quite fitting if you make the car a little bit muddy as well. We also got 18-inch alloys in this higher trim level, and they also have a two-color scheme with black on the inside and silver on the outside, and that makes the car also visually quite attractive. And finally, the massive rear, and well, obviously don't have to play so much around with the rear end of a pickup because, well, what can you do there? So this one remains quite conservative, but also versatile in the use. You can open the hatch and you can even close it. I can show that very soon as well. And this one here is suited for 250 kilograms, so I can easily sit on it. I'm glad I can. And of course, you can also pick the back rear of the motocross bike on here. It is even allowed to drive with the open hatch here. That is really possible. You just have to secure everything you put on there very properly. 1 ton of loading capacity is on there. That is possible. And 3.5 tons of towing capacity, that's behind here. So those are the facts that will be very important to you. By the way, the main thing is that the regulation passes on here, that the number plate is still visible even if the hatch is opened. And well, from your perspective, I'm not sure if that works. I'm also not sure what the police will say, but theoretically, it's still possible to see the number plate. This is the car key. And if you turn it around, you can also get the manual old key out of it. And that's important to open and close the hatch. That's not possible with every pickup. Here it is. Open and close. So now it's closed. And well, here at the moment it's not very important, but if you get a hardtop, then it's of course making sense. And you also got the rear view camera here. We have surround camera system optionally here. Very useful in off-road riding. I will show you that later. It's very important that you can really use the loading area. And for example, you can fix some tension belts here and here on all of the four sides. And you can also adjust, where those fixations will actually be in that rail. And furthermore, there are also more options for the loading area. You see here, this one here is the black plastic interior for the loading area. There's also an aluminum cover available. And then there are really plenty of options to close that loading area. For example, with a roll on and roll off, or with a flip up and down, or a fixed hardtop, which is going here. So plenty of options there, no matter what purpose you want the car for. Let me tell you something about the engines. Manual opening here, no hydraulic dampers, but anyway, it's an off-road car. So this one here is the diesel version. In Europe we only get the diesels. It's a 2.3 liter of displacement, and this one is the version with 190 horsepower, twin turbo. There's also just one turbo available, then in a 160 horsepower version. That one you can also only get with front wheel drive or optional all-wheel drive. This one here, the stronger one, is always combined with all-wheel drive, and obviously, well, it's an off-road pickup, so that should also have the off-road drive, all-wheel drive then. And for our friends in the US, that will get the Frontier. So the new generation will also be introduced for the Frontier, the later stage, and you will surely also get a petrol engine. I'm not certain of it, but well, obviously they have to offer that, of course, for the American market then. Let's get inside. We also have the keyless access here. It's not working like this. You have to press the button here and then we can get inside. Nice sound. I think they've worked on that one as well. So, first look inside here. This is the N connector trim level, so one of the higher ones, not the highest. This one has, for example, already 2-zone AC and also these special cloth seats, very beautiful. And it's kind of microfiber. It feels very, very soft. So great touch, and I can just recommend it. And that's also the reason you should not go for the top trim level, because the top trim level, Tecna, that one includes the full animal skin seats then, and it's neither good for the animals nor good for you. This one here, you'll have the best one that is available. What else can we see? There's a new steering wheel that comes closer to the normal passenger steering wheels we have in other Nissan cars, and that's also one scheme of this car. Go a little bit closer to the passenger cars, so it's easier to drive. We'll experience that one, but there are still a lot of features which are still kind of truck-ish, I would call it. Very nice here at the inside of the doors that we have the microfiber here as well, and a contrast stitch. However, those buttons here for the windows, those are still pretty basic, let's call it that way. Then about the seating position, well, the seating surface of the seat is very comfortable, as I said. Also the seat itself, well, you have the upright seating position, you sit quite high. That, of course, is very good for the comfort. But then there's one disadvantage, and I'm not sure, well, I can't remember it was that high, that's the case in the previous generation. And also if you compare it to other pickup trucks, here it's really for small people. I mean, look at that. The steering wheel, it cannot be moved towards you, just up and down. And even if I have put it all the way up, me 1.86 meters, even then, look at that. I mean, that shouldn't be the case. So no matter where I'm at, my knees are always in the way of the steering wheel kinda. And also, you know, how I'm sitting, I do still have a lot of headspace, yes, but still I'm sitting quite close to the seating here in the front. And also, you know, the feeling I have here, well, it's a good overview for off-road riding, for sure. But I more feel like sitting on the car, not in the car. And usually when you sit in a big pickup truck, you have more the feeling of, you know, a lot is around you. Here, you don't have so much space here in the front, at least. We'll soon see how it behaves in the rear compartment. But, you know, when you're a little bit smaller, that is good for you because you have a better overview. But if you're taller, definitely not the best pickup you can pick. Pickup you can pick, nice. Cockpit overview, they have a little bit refined it, also moved it a little bit more towards the passenger car side. We also see it with the new infotainment system, but which is still, you know, not really state of the art. We'll soon go into the details of that one then. And do I like this interior? I must honestly say I'm not really a fan of it because there are a lot of different structures. I'm not sure if you see this big central console. I think they didn't really quite decide where shall we go with what kind of forms, you know. And if we go into detail now, this looks passenger kind of side, but this one here looks really truckster. You see this huge shifting back here, which is covering here. Also a very long shifting stick, and this one really reminds us of old trucks then. And we also have special off-road commands. We go into detail of that one soon as well. And what's however quite nice again is that even the cover here of the middle armrest is even this very soft cloth. I really like that. And there are also a lot of storage space here inside. We can go into the detail now. Storage space at the inside of the doors, you can see you could also very well use it for bigger bottles in the front part of that one. You have this round shape. Then we move on to the glove box, which is just falling down, not sliding down. Even in this segment here, some manufacturers already think of that detail. Then with a small smartphone holder, I think that is maybe suitable for smartphones right here. Even some more space here, also USB and aux in end. 12-volt power supply, one here, and another one is on top of the dashboard. Combined with another space, here some space, and another 12-volt power supply. So you can have a lot of devices charged here, definitely. Beverages holders, they are not adaptive. So if you have smaller bottles, they might fly around a little bit. Not the best solution. Optional seat heating is placed right here in 2 levels. That is possible. Maybe that one would be here for a panoramic roof if we had one, but there's none in here. Still manual handbrake, and then here some more space. You can hide some more bottles, and another 12-volt power supply is hidden in here. So space-wise, I think we have a good offering here. And the last one is above my head for the glasses or sunglasses, maybe that. So overall, you can store a lot of stuff here already in the front part. Off-road control, we'll use that stuff when we go off-road riding on later. Two-wheel drive, just the rear wheels. That one is best for city riding then because you have a small turning circle then. I will show you in our riding part what happens when we go into four-wheel drive mode and then try to turn because the front differential does not really like that. I'll explain that one in detail later. Then four-wheel drive mode, and you can change it kind of any time. Then you have all-wheel drive, and then when you push and turn, you have to be in neutral to do that. 4 low, that's the off-road gear reduction. So we have this additional working system for the drive, and that one is really if you have hard off-road stuff. And then we not only have the front wheel differential, we can also put in the rear differential lock. That one is also possible then, and this is then the maximum off-road stuff you can go to. And there's also a hill descent control that can be activated as well. We'll also show you that in the off-road mode later on. The instrument panel is rather classic, and you see it on the left, on the right side, left for RPM, big for the off-road stuff. In the middle one we have a digital display for some information, whatever you want to put on there. Also some GPS information, and very nice that they have this visualization of the new Navara. And you see it, for example, works also when they close the door, that it's really changed. The AC air conditioning unit is, well, pretty simple as well, also placed quite below here, but it's still very well accessible, so it doesn't sit too low. The new infotainment screen, well, you see the visualization, it's not the most modern one. Also, you cannot scroll in it like with a smartphone. You have to use the button right here, for example, to zoom in and out. We had the Nürburgring here today at the off-road park. And then you have those hotkeys for back and map, or going for the setup, like this. And also here the visualization, also the reaction times. This is here for darker or brighter. This is a good stuff that you have it on one button, and the left part is for the volume then, or for put stuff on there. And there's a hotkey for the camera, and that one is really good because here we have the optional around view camera, 2 cameras each on the side mirrors, one front camera and one rear camera. And you can, for example, also see here is the front camera. This one will really help us when we're going uphill. And you can also change to a different mode. Here, for example, see the right part of your tires, that you don't touch anything. So, you know, especially the right part, because the left part you can see from your driver window. So that's a really good system, but the resolution of the cameras is not good. That really looks, you know, not high res, definitely. By the way, 210 kilometers max. This is just a sticker for the winter tires. And I wouldn't imagine going 210 with this car, even with summer tires. So kind of a little bit pathetic. Let's get in the rear. As I said, this is the double cab. The king cab would be just like 2+2. So I couldn't sit like this in the king cab. That is, you know, more for putting stuff inside the vehicle. Then if you also want to have passengers here inside, you will have to go for the double cab. And here, well, you see it does still work with the knee space, but I'm sitting quite low, even, you know, for a pickup truck. So I feel like, you know, like an elephant on a small chair, something like that. Really strange feeling. It's still quite okay with the headroom here above me. That works, but I'm not sure how it looks on camera. I feel a little bit displaced here. I feel like I'm too big for this car overall. Well, I do fit in here, basically, but it's also not the most comfortable seating position. So we had, you know, better pickups in our test here as for the interior space, for, you know, for the seating areas as well, for the front and as for the rear. But, you know, me with 1.86 m, now you can see how much of a guy is fitting in the rear compartment here. Let's start our test ride. 2.3 liter diesel. Sounds like a truck, doesn't it? Not like a passenger car. And that's what it is. Here the twin turbo with 190 horsepower. There is also another one available, just with 160 horsepower, but that is then a single turbo. And we're testing the turning circle here because, oh wow, what's that sound? Going to first gear. When I have the steering wheel all the way, it sounds kind of weird. It's just, you know, from the axle in the front. Also, the diesel engine is quite loud, but the turning circle has been improved and it's actually quite okay, I think. So let's see, let's get off here. You see the steering wheel, the assist for that one also has been improved, so you have more steering assist. It's not that hard to steer anymore, but you've seen we need a long steering angle still when we want to turn the car all the way around. So that's still the case, and well, there are some other pickups already that have improved that one, that you can drive even easier, that you don't have those long steering angles. Let's see, we're going into another roundabout. Maybe some of you have already known where we are. We're at the Nürburgring, but obviously not the car to go on the racetrack with. So yeah, it's really way easier to see. Also, the steering wheel is smaller now in this new generation. So, well, you hear it's a truck. Also, the shifting lever, as I've shown you, a huge bag around it, and it also feels still like a truck. But you know, there's a common theme that with the new generation of the pickup trucks, the manufacturers try to make them easier to drive and more normal passenger car-like. Got some of the elements here, but sound-wise, shifting-wise, also steering-wise, it still feels like the real deal, and you know, it's not that close to a normal Nissan passenger car, definitely not. What I love is this very high seating position here also, and we got this command drive just really above things. But I already have told you in the interior review that it's not the best car for very tall people, because you cannot move the steering wheel more up. And see, when I'm steering, I'm kind of steering against my knees almost, so that steering wheel should be more up, and I got the seat all the way down. No chance. I can move away from it a little bit more, but you know, you always have to pay attention that you stay close to the steering wheel, that you can always have a good reaction on, you know, whatever is coming, facing towards you. They also improved the sound insulation. Diesel is still quite loud, I must say, but from the wind noises, this one has been also improved in comparison to the predecessor generation. However, this one has definitely not the best CW value, so the wind resistance is still present, of course. But for example, now I'm driving 90 kilometers an hour and I don't have to raise my voice that much, so that's still okay then. Also, when I'm steering here at a little bit higher speeds, of course we get a truck, and so we are also tilting a little bit, or a little bit more, but that's normal because, you know, this is an off-road vehicle definitely. But you see, that goes faster with those very easy steering. So the steering does not have a natural feeling at all, because it's really focused here on this electronic support we have. So you can't expect some kind of natural steering feeling. Let's move inside here and do some more corners. Shifting down as well. Let's see, this is a 90-degree turn. You see how far I have to turn the steering wheel. And well, if they want to make it easier to drive, they probably should have put the steering a little bit more progressive. The seats are very comfortable, as I told you, in the interior. And I really love the surface, and they also add to this very comfortable feeling we have here inside the car. You can also adjust the seat even more, quite easy also while driving. And what I realize now, especially more when driving, is that the front of the very top of the front screen, it's a little bit of a blue color, and that you know, maybe don't need the huge sunshade then. Well, you can, wow, it almost blocks your whole view when you're quite tall. Wow, I can't even see the road. So that even more stresses the fact that it's not suitable 100% when you're like about 190 meters or even taller. It's really have a better position when you're smaller, definitely. I almost feel a little bit too tall for, even though I have, you know, still quite a headroom, I feel too tall for the car. I feel like I was sitting on a go-kart. That's a really strange feeling for a pickup, because sometimes in huge pickup trucks, you rather feel lost when driving a car. However, as this car then feels smaller, maybe that is also a positive aspect for you, that it makes you a more comfortable feeling being able to control the car. Let's now drive a little bit faster and see how the car reacts in the corner. Wow. This is really struggling. But with the twin turbo, well, I would recommend that one to you if you want to put a lot of stuff on the loading area. If you don't want to put a lot of stuff there, then you can also go with a smaller diesel. But then the question is, if you don't want to put a lot of stuff in there, why would you go for the car? As for being comfortable or not, one of the most important factors they have changed is the rear axle. So before there was a rigid rear axle in the rear. Now there's a multi-link axle, and just for our German viewers that we got that term here as well, or maybe to learn some more German, the rigid axle would be the Starrachse and the multi-link axle would be the Einzelradaufhängung. And that is very important because every single wheel is handled by the suspension. That does happen in passenger cars, and the rigid axle then, suspension kind of handles both at the same time, both wheels. That is more for high durability and very high loads. Still possible to put 1 ton here behind you, but however, they want to make it more comfortable. And well, you feel it when you're going over some bumps, because before it's about like, you go over a bump and the front wheel they feel quite comfortable, and then the rear comes and you're like, boom. That's because you have this rigid axle in the previous generation. Here now it's different. So you do feel a big difference, especially when you're going over some uneven roads. When the road is quite plain, as it is right now, you don't really feel it. Just when you're going over some really bad parts of the road. And of course, it also makes it more comfortable when off-road riding. You might think about, okay, do you lose some durability then? But, well, I'm sure they must have been thinking about that, because this car will still be used for off-road riding, for sure. So, well, the longer I drive, of course, this very high seating position with the command view, with the new suspension, is suitable for longer travels. And I mean, if you have this car for your leisure time, putting some motocross bikes on the rear, then you might also go, on some longer rides, going to your next favorite test track, and then that will also really help you when the car is more comfortable. See it here, when it gets a little bit faster, well, you shouldn't drive too fast with the car, because then it tilts too much and you might start to lose a little bit of control of the car. It's really for that slow cruising with the truck and going just miles and miles on the motorway. And that can also be a lot of fun in the car than if it's so comfortable. But the main surprise is really what I've seen in the interior review already, is that, as when you're really tall, you feel a little bit lost as for the seating position, and that is confirmed definitely also when riding a little bit longer here. We'll also have the off-road part, as I've promised you. We're going to that one soon, and then we'll also test the different off-road features. On the road, it's more about just if you have the four-wheel drive, which is always combined with this 190 horsepower diesel. However, if you have the weaker diesel, then you also can pick the front-wheel drive only. That would be the economic solution. Here we can change it. We're just driving in four-wheel drive mode here, but I can also change it to two-wheel drive mode. You heard that little beep, and then I just have the power with the rear wheels. And I'm trying to turn around the car here now, see that if that's possible, without being annoyed too much. And whoa, there it is. You have to press the gear shifter down and then to the right part, and it goes in rear. Well, but it's not kind of a hassle due to the new steering support. It's not too hard to turn the car around, even on some narrow areas. That really, really helps you a lot. So I've turned to two-wheel drive mode now. I'm just getting the push from the rear wheels now. You can do that, but there's not much sense in it. And there are some marketing brochures where it also always said, when just one axle gets the torque, that it helps in the consumption. But that's not really true, because most of the cars, the differential is running anyway. Maybe it saves some fuel, but it won't have such a great effect. So let me change back to the four-wheel drive mode again. See when I accelerate if I feel any difference. Yeah, just a little bit. With the two-wheel drive, you're just being pushed, and here you also feel you're a little bit pulled from the front wheels. Of course, when going down with such a heavy car, you feel that the brakes have to work a lot, definitely. But they've made the car a little bit lighter, and so it also feels a little bit lighter to drive in comparison to the previous generation. So from driving, it's not totally a revolution if you compare it to the predecessor model, but definitely it's easier to drive and more comfortable. So those ones are the two main factors that have changed from generation to generation, what I can take now from road driving. Now we start our off-road ride, and first thing we do is, it's different way to clutch in and out in normal off-road mode. And if we then stop, go into neutral, as I've shown you earlier, we push and go into the off-road gear reduction mode. We also heard a small warning sound. And funny thing is, because it's that strong now, I can just lift the clutch and the engine doesn't go off. So I can, just without pushing any throttle, the engine is just running. And now the car is going at a very slow speed, and that is very good for off-road riding, because then the least stuff can happen. Of course, I can also give it a little more throttle, and you hear the difference. This is the off-road gear reduction now, so I stay at a very, very low speed, but still have a lot of power I can put on the ground. So the first thing we'll do, go into the water. The wading depth is a maximum of 60 centimeters for this car, and approximately 60 centimeters we'll also reach very soon. We're starting here. It's not that deep. It's always funny to go into the water because it looks, of course, very spectacular, especially from the outside. From the inside, you don't feel that much, at least not when you start, when you just go slow. But we soon also feel more about that. Here we can also turn inside the water. And well, you don't really see what's beneath the water. That's the dangerous part, of course. So now it goes into the deep blue sea. Well, not blue, more brown. So I just leave the car rolling and don't do anything on the throttle. So we go just at a very, very slow speed. And now we also hear, the water is all around us. This is really deep. And when I would open the doors now, everything would be flooded, so I better don't open the doors. That's all just water. The car is not damaged. So as long as you go very slowly, and well, here in the off-road park we know how deep it is. Of course, it's not that good. If it would be maybe even deeper, then the engine could suck in water. Therefore, maybe those true rally cars that are built for that one, for the rally rates, for example, they have this the air intake which is even higher than the engine itself. So that was the first exercise. Always fun to go in water. Of course, you can all normally shift in the off-road gear reduction, but you can't go faster than a speed of about 80 kilometers an hour. Now we go into a small sand pit. There we can push the throttle a little more, and I really love sand riding because the car gets a little bit loose then. You can also play around with it a little bit. The stability control is also off. Now we got some gravel changes, and you hear it as well, how the car's working. We slide just a little bit, but again, Navara shows here that the off-road capabilities were very important also when developing here the next generation of the car. So you always hear that the RPMs go really high already quite early in this off-road gear reduction mode. Now we wait a little bit because we have another car in front of us. They are finished, and what is coming now is that we tilt the car, and as it goes here, right, it's about 30 degrees, and the maximum the car is able to do is about 50 degrees. And the funny thing here is, again, you might think the car will be falling over, but it doesn't, because the center of gravity is always kept at the lowest maximum point there, and you know, such a car is quite high, but that doesn't mean that all of the weight is sitting right here. It's rather sitting low, and that's also the reason why we don't flip. Will we? Let's find out. Again, we approach this here very slowly. And it's always funny if you can pick some flowers up from your left side, then I'm going like this, and also some of our equipment goes loose here now. And you see, this is really feels very extreme, because you also hear the G-forces, feel the G-forces, sorry. And now I'm going back. Up there I can just see something of the ceiling. Wow, that's always a very impressive feeling doing that. Next transition, because now we're approaching a very large uphill. There we can also find out more about going up and also downhill, more about the specific off-road features this car has, because it has also a special hill descent control, which is working, well, not exactly like other hill descent controls we had so far, but we will soon show you that. We'll first go uphill. And you know, we've also shown you in other off-road reviews, you can really, well, hammer the throttle when you have some gravel on the uphill, or just say at a constant RPM. But it's actually also possible to go up very slowly, and maybe that's even more impressive. So we wait again for another car in front of us, but it's nice that we have a car in front of us, because then we can see actually where we're going. So the funny thing we're doing now, we're just going up there in the, in the speed where I do nothing, not hitting the throttle. So I'm going very slowly, just let the car do it. And it's really strange that you can go uphill that slow. I mean, look at that. I mean, it says 50 degrees. Wow. Sorry, 50% and 27 degrees. That's it. And well, just can see the scene. But funny thing now is, I can use the camera system, hit the camera button, and well, I can't see anything here, but as the front camera is put lower, I can now see where we're going. Well, even if the sun is facing towards it. But this is very important also for the safety, because I can see we got free way here now, so I don't run over someone who is maybe standing at the top of the hill. So it's a very important fact, and especially when you're using the car for this off-road purposes, then it's always good to have the camera combined. And by the way, more in detail to the front differential lock, that is always active when you're in the four-wheel drive mode. And if I got the steering all the way around here, you got this strange sound, because the differential, is rigid, and then the inner wheel wants to turn faster than it actually should. And that's the reason, why you should maybe put the two-wheel drive mode in the city driving then, because then we don't have a fixed front differential. So, and now it's about turning the wheels up and down, and we have a different setup on the left and the right part of the car. And let's see how the car masters this here. This is all about the axle displacement. And again, going very slow, and you see here out the steering wheel, and have to catch it, how it works. And let's see, the car goes further. There it is. We had a little bit of a spin in the rear, and it can happen that the car won't pass through here, but then you can put in the rear differential lock. Then you get through, because you can then get more traction on the ground, on the wheel that is actually in contact with the ground. Especially when you look at it from the outside, it's really funny that the car is actually able to do that and goes out here without any damage. It's always funny when you feel the forces at the steering wheel. Now we'll face it downhill. I'll activate the hill descent control. Yes, it's active. And you know, if you're not that an often experienced off-road driver, now approaching about over 50% downhill and 28 degrees. I can activate the camera system. I can really see where I'm going downhill. And now the funny thing is, again, I do nothing. I don't hit the brakes, I don't hit the clutch, and I don't hit the throttle. And still the car is keeping itself, see, we're going downhill very slowly. And now they have activated another safety mechanism that, you know, when you maybe say, oh my God, and you hit the clutch very hard, still the hill descent control remains in place. And that's not with every car, and not with every hill descent control. If you may be like a very pure off-road driver, you might say, oh, I don't want this override. But of course, Nissan wants to try to set this vehicle up for, you know, a normal customer which is not that experienced with off-road riding, and then it's a good safety mechanism, of course. So that's our off-road ride for today. Hope you enjoyed it. And now to the conclusion of the all-new generation of the Nissan Navara, NP300 or Nissan Frontier. They want to drop the NP300 badge, this in Germany and maybe also in other European markets. So this one will be the European Navara then, and in US it will still Frontier probably. But what are really the changes in the new generation? Of course, we have talked about the exterior, and it looks more refined, a little bit more modern, but of course with a pickup you don't create any miracles when designing. The interior is, of course, even more up to date, and I really like the seating surfaces we had in here. Also, the infotainment system has been updated, but is, you know, not my most favorite still. And well, what I find quite astonishingly that well, I don't feel I have more space in the interior, really, at least not in the front, because it seems to be more suitable for smaller drivers, especially as for the steering wheel position and how high you sit in the car in comparison to the steering wheel. What is really good, that the city driving has improved a lot, especially when you're in the two-wheel drive mode and don't have the front differential lock active. There's a better turning circle, for example. It's also easier to steer, and the car is way more comfortable, because not sure if the American version will also include it, but at least in Europe, you don't have the rigid rear axle anymore, but you have the multi-linked axle, so you have more comfort definitely when riding, and I really felt that. However, this is really primarily an off-road car, and therefore you also have the restriction with the four-wheel drive that you have the front differential locked in and cannot turn that well in the four-wheel drive mode when you're driving in the city. So here it does then make sense to go in the two-wheel drive mode, not consumption-wise, but turning-wise. So, and all of the off-road capabilities, they have been really impressive, especially in combination with the camera system and all of the other off-road gear reduction features that we have. So almost everything here in the off-road park that was off-road, this one is also able to master. So this one will be the primary pick if you really want to still have a true off-road pickup. In the US, I know it's rather a mid-sized pickup. Here in Europe, it's really a full-size pickup, but you know, everything is bigger in Texas, they say. So that's my conclusion today. And I hope you liked our special off-road episode here, and see you next time with Thomas at Autogefühl.